Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to the Sweetwater Minute. For this week's installment, our own Nick DiVirgilio sits down with Nathan Nockels, successful songwriter, musician, and producer in the Christian music market. They have a wide-ranging conversation that goes very in-depth on what it takes to make it in today's Christian music market and what it's like to be part of that scene. Check this out.
How you doing, everybody? Nick DiVirgilio here, and my very special guest in studio today is Mr. Nathan Nockels. Nathan,
hey,
nice to see you. Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah,
it's your first time here to Sweetwater, yeah?
This is my first time. It's a lot. Honestly, it's a lot to take in.
Now, did you have any idea what this place was all about before you came?
No. Well, check this out. My first contact with Sweetwater was probably 1990.
Okay.
And I was buying a hard case for my Korg M1.
There you go.
See, so there, that puts it in perspective.
So
right
you've been
there.
buying gear here for many years now.
I mean, yeah. So Jim Swain was my guy, and Jim Swain is still my guy.
That's
so,
amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing how people make these relationships with their sales engineers, and then they keep them for years
forever.
and years and years.
Yeah, for me, like 25 years.
Yeah, that's what makes this place pretty special.
Yeah, for sure.
So so when you get a chance today, check out the whole facility. This campus is just growing all the time, and it's a lot of fun. And we kind of call it the Disneyland for gear because there's just so much to choose from and to play with. So
and you get to play with it. I was coming in here. There's a music store here too.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go hang out in there.
I think you should.
I'll stop by the studio, and then I'll get my hair done in the salon.
Of course, yeah. Get a massage if you want to.
Get a massage.
Yeah, all that stuff. Whatever.
It's all good.
Eat in the restaurant.
Yeah,
get a coffee.
Awesome.
Well, it's great. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, man.
Now, if those of you who don't know, Nathan is a composer, producer, multi-instrumentalist, songwriter. Along with your wife, Christy, you guys have been together for a long time making music together. You've been in the kind of worship Christian music market for many years now. And Sweetwater has a really cool event going on the next couple days called Worship Connect, and that's kind of why you're here with your wife. So, you know, the Christian music scene is just so huge, and a lot of great music's going on in there, and the worship part of it is just really important. So why don't we start from the beginning real quick and kind of go through a quick history about you and your career. Where'd you get your start? What brought you into this style, this kind of line of music?
Initially, it was in Oklahoma City.
Okay.
And I went to junior high and high school with a guy named Charlie Hall. Charlie Hall was one of the front runners, first worship leaders that were ever on the Passion worship records.
Okay.
The Passion record that had like Better's One Day, Heart of Worship, Let Everything That Has Breath. Well, Charlie is the one that kind of came to the table with all these songs in '98 and said, hey, Louis Giglio, Nathan, Christy, we should release these songs. There's this weird, funny little guy in the UK named Matt Redman, and he's writing all these cool songs, and we'd never heard these songs before. So anyway, Charlie and I, we kind of grew up together, and we did independent records together, and we had a great band name that Charlie and I did, and we were called Nathan and Charlie. There you have it. And so our buddies used to think we were like a ventriloquist act or something like. So, but we did camps, we did college campuses and that whole thing. Right. Always doing worship, and this was probably 94, 95, 96. And there was no worship scene to speak of, but there was this movement happening in Kansas City with the Vineyard worship. And and I'm sure a lot of folks would, when I say Vineyard music, Kansas City, they're going to think of like Kevin Prosh. They're going to think of the song Banqueting Table. They're going to think of David Ruis and all these great, Ruis, R-U-I-S. I never met the guy, but I've seen his name. It's one of those. So anyway, that was the initial forging of me into worship music. It's funny, I remember in '94, '95, Chrissy and I just got married, and I remember listening to, I'm not going to say what worship record it was, but I remember listening to this worship record thinking, this production is really not great.
Right.
And I remember there was like a saxophone solo in the middle, but not a good one.
Right.
Like a not great one.
So you get some inspiration to do better than that, I imagine.
It was, but what I couldn't deny about it was the heart of it, and there was fire in it.
Sure.
So, but I had this thing of like, God, I want it to be better, but I got to keep the fire in this worship. So that set me off on this quest.
Now, to take a little step back from there, growing up as a kid, were you in this kind of, in church music? Is that kind of where you got your love for this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And it kind of got into your
soul? I had
sweet
people that, growing up, that they let me play keyboard, and I do, yeah, my Korg M1. My dad is awesome. I can't believe he bought me that Korg and this giant PV amp, you know, I plugged it into, but yeah, I got to play at church and just kind of dink along, and that's when I started associating chords, inversions, improvising, groove, and I started kind of putting all that together, so yeah.
And did you study music as a kid? Lessons, proper lessons and all that kind of stuff?
Did the normal piano lessons, and then into college, I got a music education degree with a piano major, yeah, so.
Beautiful. All right, so then I read you had your duo or band with your wife, Watermark, right? And those of you, if you don't know that either, you've won a lot of Dove Awards, and you've kind of had a really kind of solid career in this kind of music. So question for you is, how do you find the worship side of music, the Christian side of music, to deal with as opposed to kind of sort of mainstream pop, rock and roll? What's it like being in that world?
Yeah, I mean, the question you're asking is stuff I was.
I mean, is it the same kind of thing? You're going out to get record deals, and you're kind of doing all the business side of it as well.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, I know you guys tour, you do lots of gigs.
Yeah.
Whether they're in churches or whatever, but you're still out there doing that same kind of.
Yeah.
You got to get the music out there to the people. So what's it like, kind of? Each side of that?
How Christy and I fell into this position we are, my position as a producer and a lot of producing worship music, is we kind of fell into it naturally. It just happened to be that's where we just lived, and it just happened to be that that's the kind of music we were playing. And I was the only one in the room that cared passionately about how the kick drum sounded, and then and no one else cared. You know, Charlie and Christy, they're
as a drummer, I know that makes a difference.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, it does. But they were up front, and so yeah, I just started associating like, God, I'm the only one that cares about this. So I just have a burning passion. So that being said, even I remember in some of the early Passion records, 2001, 2002, 2003, I would never go into those records thinking, let's make a worship record. It was more like when we got in and arranged those songs, I'm thinking artistically. I'm thinking this is how I would if this was a pop record or whatever. I still think that.
Well, it's still music. I mean, it's a song.
Sure.
Right?
And there's the same emotional reaction that happens when we hear a great whatever, a James Taylor song or a Sean Colvin song or something that's just classic that does something to you.
Sure.
And then when you hear a great arrangement of a worship song, I think it's hitting the same spot in our guts, you know.
Very cool. And if you have not heard his wife Christy sing, I highly encourage you to check her out because she's got an amazing voice.
She knows all the notes.
All of the notes.
She knows
and
all.
She
of them.
sings them all very well. Definitely.
No, she's great.
Now, building your career as a producer and a songwriter. Where did you get your inspiration from with the different songs you're writing? I mean, you studying different artists in that same vein, or are you just kind of like coming up with stuff naturally? How's it work?
How I was kind of influenced early on is I remember in 6th, 7th grade, I was the guy, and you probably were too, where I memorized the liner notes, and I knew, and there was this. I would see, studios, in Nashville, Quad Studio, and the tracking room, and this place called the Bennett House. Okay. And I remember reading the Bennett House, and produced by Brown Bannister. And I just had this thing in my head, like, Brown Bannister, who is this guy? And the Bennett House. I mean, I thought like that's where the unicorns live. Like that's where the rainbow begins or ends. But I remember going on vacation in Nashville when I was a kid. We lived in Oklahoma, but I was probably 7th grade, and I was like, I don't care what we do. We can go to like the Opryland Hotel, whatever. I want to find the Bennett House, and I want to just drive by it. And so we did, and it's just now. I mean, I've worked there 100 times now, but it's just a cool old house in downtown Franklin. But Brown Bannister was a massive influence. I listened to a lot of Christian music growing up, and my parents, they did the best they could, but they kind of felt like they were sheltering me by like, no, you're not going to listen to mainstream secular music and all that. But it's funny though, when I was in high school, I think my mom started seeing that I was really taking to music. Sure. And I don't know, I think she was overcome with guilt a bit. And I came home from school one day, and she had every Beatles record, every Beach Boys record, and she was like, babe, I'm so sorry. I kept this from you all these years, but you know, here, you know, this is real music, you know. So it was great. So but yeah, early on, it was a lot of great influences.
In keeping with that subject matter, I was, you know, YouTubing a lot of you guys' stuff and Christy and her concerts and some of the live events, and it still amazes me to see some of the enormity of some of these events you guys have done. Huge arenas, you know. We went to see Chris Tomlin last year. He played at the arena here in town. So it's like big rock concert style kinds of things. But what I find really kind of interesting is that these worship songs are meant for people to sing along and to be a part of. So what's that like, being in those huge venues with songs you've written and lyrics you guys have come up with yourself, and having the people sing along with the words on the screens and all that kind of stuff? What's that feeling like?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, on just a non-spiritual level, musical level, it's a blast. I mean, you know, because you're just, I mean, hitting your guitar and it's 60,000 pairs of ears, you know, are hearing what I'm doing, you know. So that feels, and the subs are, you know, earth-shattering, you know, your teeth are shaking, and it's, it's completely awesome. Now, that being said, I keep that to myself, and, you know, I kind of internalize that.
Of course.
Yeah, that being said, I know that there's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of discussion on, like, you know, lights, sound, worship, music, true worship, and what is it, and all that kind of stuff. And you know, it's just been my experience that just as if you and I were to sit and watch, you know, I don't know, Braveheart or some classic movie that moves us deeply. Sometimes, and I did this seeing Les Mis when they redid that a few years ago. I left the theater like really emotional and almost had like this spiritual, something happened. I don't know. And I sat in my car after that and I bawled. And I don't know why. It was nothing that was said. It wasn't a particular song. I think it was just, it was the melodies.
Right.
It was the music. It was, but to think that there were not just years and of guys doing the nuts and bolts work. There were mic cables, there were mics, there were mic pre's, there were a million decisions made on how do we get this emotion out of people. And man, it worked for me. So I tie that directly to worship music, to where, you know, obviously God is doing something, whether He doesn't need our power chords and He doesn't need my pads and delays and all. He doesn't need that junk. What's cool though is that all that stuff, when people are, that many people are in one place, some of those things, how it sounds, how it moves, it's kind of like people, we're kind of snapping our fingers. Hey guys, look, you know, look, hey, you know, look up here, look, you know, look how great he is. You know, it's that kind of thing. It's not, check out my guitar, check out my delay.
Right. It's creating a vibe and an atmosphere in the room.
Yeah.
So tying that maybe into the actual craft of writing the worship song, is there a formula that you kind of go by, or is it different every time? I mean, what can you explain that a little bit?
I think that this is my opinion, and you guys can throw it out and disagree, agree. There's a lot of worship songs being written now.
Sure.
And I think that the waters have gotten diluted quite a bit. What's fun is that I've gotten to sit in the room and watch, like Chris Tomlin or Matt Redman or Christy or Matt Maher. I sit there and I watch them write, and I watch the process, and then I give my little, hey, what if we did and instead of or, you know, or whatever. That's my 2 cents. But I'm telling you, when I say there's no formula, there is no formula. There is no formula. And I think what happens though is, as those songs like Lord I Need You or Our God or any of Chris's Angel Armies or any of that, as that kind of makes its way through the church, I think people kind of grab onto what works and they start connecting. Oh, he always goes to the 6 minor there, and oh, it always goes to a 4 on the floor there. But in the beginning, it was never talked about, and it was never formulated. So what's coming out of Chris, what's coming out of Redmond or out of Passion or even United, it's completely natural, and Chris wouldn't know any other kind of song to write. You know, and Travis, Chris Tomlin's drummer, he's such a stamp on a lot of the worship music that's out now. But it's always that 4 on the floor thing, get the hat going, you know, big build. But that's just how Travis plays.
Sure.
You know, it's no formula.
Okay, cool. And before we kind of get into the gear thing, because we have to talk about gear, because we're at Sweetwater.
Yeah.
But I got one other question about the business side of being in that kind of music. This might be a stupid question, but how hard is it to make a living in that world? I mean, are you selling records?
Yeah.
Are you selling merch at the gigs? I mean, how do you, because you have to kind of keep this going, especially when the productions are big like that. I mean, I know it's not free.
Yeah,
but
no.
So there's that aspect to it as well. And as a person who's made it to a high level like you and Christy have, what's the business side of it like? Is it difficult? Is it?
No, I will say I live in a multi-level home, so that speaks for itself. No, I'm kidding. No, you know what it is? I think that Christy and I, if we really look at it, we're doing like 9 or 10 or 11 different things.
Okay.
And a lot of this, it's not really fair for me to shoot out and say this is how everybody should do it. This just happens to be how I'm wired and how Christy's wired. But there's never been a decision I've made that's been based off of, well, that's going to be a cash cow. That's going to work. You know, it's more just doing this for, well, I don't know, whatever, 20 plus years. The things that are the most rewarding and that have reaped the most benefits for me spiritually, financially, have always been the things that I've dove into completely heart first. Okay. And I would be willing to do for free if that happened. So our our monthly income, it'll consist of royalties from past records I've done. It'll consist of advances on records I'm working on right now.
So typical kind of music business sort of things.
And then we're out playing live,
okay.
2 weekends, you know, a month. So yeah, it's several different things.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's some good info.
Diversify.
There. For sure. Yeah. If you're going to be in music, you definitely have to do that.
For sure.
All right, so let's get into gear. Because you make a lot of music. So what's your go-to thing when you write? I mean, I know you play guitar and keyboards and different things, and you program and stuff. So is every song different? Probably, and that's maybe a dumb question too. But
yeah. And it depends on who I'm writing with, because there's one guy that he really reacts to if I get a big groove going and I get some kind of thing going and I just start on a progression, and then he gets jacked up and just starts singing stuff. You know. On the flip side of that, Christy is completely turned off by that. She's like, can we just sit at a piano, just like 2 people making music, you know, just simple. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. And then if it's Tomlin, Matt Maher, a lot of those guys, they strap on the acoustics and they're just banging, walking around and just singing stuff, just yelling stuff. Does this melody yell well? Right. Our God is great. You know, just trying stuff on. Then they'll come and face each other and start singing to each other and no, go up and down, da da da. You know, so and that's like it's not an aggressive form of songwriting, but it's a lot more. The intensity is definitely up. So all that to say, on the side of gear, I always enjoy. For me, it's inspiring when I just pull up a great piano sound, dirty it up, put some delay, put some verb on it. So when I hit a G chord or whatever, it's inspiring. Sure. You know what I mean? It kind of does something like, oh yeah, and then you automatically feel cool, and you're only playing one chord. Right. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing.
Now, in researching the YouTube videos and stuff like that, you do a lot of kind of, you know, how-to things that I found, and so it looks like you use Pro Tools a lot. Yeah, right. Is that your main DAW you record in? For sure. Yeah.
One of the first Watermark records, alluding back to Christy and I's little duo, the guy that was doing our record was doing Pro Tools, and I remember just watching and learning, and finally there was a point that hit in the middle of this record we were doing, to where I was like, hey, dude, could you just scoot over for 1 second? Could I jump in there real quick? I see what you're doing. And dude, I never left the chair. Like never, but Pro Tools, it's just like for me, it's like I have 10 fingers and then I Pro Tools. It's like another arm. It's the craziest thing. And I'm not an engineer, but it's like the ultimate tool for idiots like me that are just, 99% creative and 1% technical. DBs and whatever's.
So do you guys demo a lot of your stuff at home before you go to a regular studio and cut a song?
Yeah. Okay. And that's been new, meaning probably in the last 6 years, we've really started doing that. Okay. And you think any song's like a journey. We're going to get from here, and I don't know if the end destination is 1,000 miles from here.
Right.
I don't know if it's 2 feet from here, but we have to start going. And what happens with the pre-production thing is, man, I mean, these tracks, they're kind of getting pretty full on, you know, and just in the pre-production. But what's fun about the pre-production phase, in the demo phase, is that I find that I'm much more free and much more creative, because it's like, it's just a demo.
Sure.
It doesn't matter. You know, I'll try that sound, or I'll try that mic, and say, oh, whatever. And man, you know what? 9 times that's a lot. I'd say 3 times out of 10. I'm going back to the demo. I'm like, God, what was that keyboard sound I was using? Or what was that delay we were using?
Do you find you get to that demo-itis kind of thing sometimes when you go into the studio, where you get set on what you did in the demo phase?
Well, I've had the advantage of, you know, doing this over and over and over.
Right.
So I do see the sickness of demo-itis. Right. But I just have the advantage of the perspective of like, but pay attention to the demo.
Right.
Because there's something about that people are reacting to, and people seem to be like, it makes people, I watch their body when they're listening to a mix or to a demo. And if they're like, you know, what's making them do that? You know, or if they're like, you know, like, oh, what's making them do that? You know, in the demo. So it's like, find the things in the demo that seem to be making them groove.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, this might be a little bit of a weird question. Does Christy have a favorite microphone she uses in the studio?
Yeah.
That you guys go to all the time?
Mm-hmm. Right now we have the blue bottle.
Yeah.
Like the guy that's, you know, that big, and you know that. And I mainly got that just to get a few different capsules for it.
Okay.
And but sure enough, I haven't gotten any new capsules for it.
Right.
You know. But eventually I will. But we just finished Christy's Christmas record, like literally just mastered last week, and we used that blue bottle. What's funny though, there's also on some of the other records we've done, we'll use an SM7 on some stuff.
Sure.
But where she's like gutting it out.
Yeah.
SM7.
That's a great rock microphone. I mean, loud. I've used that many times.
Yeah.
And for a $400 mic, it works
my
a
gosh.
lot. And
It's the best.
You know, so Nathan, thanks so much for coming here to Sweetwater.
Yeah, man.
You know, best of luck to you and Christy over this next couple of days here at Worship Connect, doing what you guys are going to do. I know Christy's going to perform a little bit.
Yeah.
You guys do some talking and some other things like that as well.
Yeah, we're going to kind of take the mystery out of some of the stuff we do.
That's great.
People are going to be like, oh, is that it? Well, I can do that.
Well, that's why it makes Sweetwater really cool. Coming here for all kinds, not just Worship Connect, but all kinds of different things we have throughout the year. People can really come here and get educated on all kinds of stuff.
Sure.
You know, the behind the scenes kinds of things. So again, best of luck with that. Best of luck with the rest of your career, and you know, make it happen.
Dude. Thanks, dude. Appreciate
Thanks so much for coming. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody.
I hope you enjoyed our interview with Nathan Nockels. My thanks to Nick DiVirgilio for conducting the interview, and thank you for joining me for the Sweetwater Minute. I'm Mitch Gallagher.